Hello everyone. Today's lesson is on applications of sets. This is the last subtopic of our lesson on sets. And after this, we will have some examples, word problems that involves set application, and we will also use Venn diagram in answering those word problems. Now let's begin. So you have here, let A, B, and C be arbitrary sets, or when you say arbitrary sets, then it can be any set. The number of elements of A union B is equal to the number of elements of A plus the number of elements of B minus the number of elements of A intersection B. In the case where the intersection of A and B is a null set or empty set, then a number of elements of A union B is equal to the number of elements of A plus the number of elements of B. And then the third one is, we have three sets here, A, B, and C, and if you get the number of elements of its union, then it is just equal to the number of elements of A plus the number of elements of B plus the number of elements of C minus the number of elements of A intersection B minus the number of elements of A intersection C minus the number of elements of B intersection C plus the number of elements of A intersection B intersection C. And then the fourth one is n of A minus B is equal to n of A minus the number of elements of A intersection B. And the last one is the number of elements of the complement of A is equal to the number of elements of the universal set minus the number of elements of set A. Now, with all this, you have 5 applications of sets. You can use this in answering word problems involving sets, and Venn diagram as well is very useful, so that it's very useful when you have or when you want to visualize your problem. So let's try some word problem here. So let's have, from a survey of 180 listeners of a music station, there are 105 listeners who like rock, 102 who like jazz, 125 who like pop, 72 like both rock and jazz, 63 like both rock and pop, and 77 listeners like both jazz and pop. Find the number of listeners who like only pop if there are no one who dislikes all 3 kinds of music. So I have here, and I highlighted that. So we will have to do some representations. We will just use the first letter of the type of music here. So you have R for rock, which is equal to 105. And then you have jazz, which is equal to 102. And then of course you have pop, which is equal to 125. And we will try to have that in our Venn diagram. So this is your rock, which is equal to 105, and then jazz is equal to 102, and then pop, which is equal to 125. Then let's have, what is 180? The given here in our problem is 180, and that is n of R union J union P. Okay, that is J and this is P, and which is equal to 180 listeners. And then you have another given there is N of R intersection J or jazz, which is equal to 72. And then you have N of rock and intersection pop, which is equal to 63, and then N of jazz intersection pop, which is equal to 77. Okay, so with all this information, you have the given and you have a representation there. We do not know actually what is this part here, the intersection of, we do not know this. So we will just, to represent that, we will represent that with our x. Okay, so that is your x there. Then based on our given here, we will be able to find x, or the intersection of, or those listeners who listen to all three music. So let's have N of R union J union P is equal to N of R plus N of J for your jazz plus N of your pop minus N of R intersection jazz, or minus N of R intersection pop, and minus N of jazz intersection pop, plus the number of elements of rock intersection jazz intersection pop. Okay, now we have this given there, so let's just have the total number of elements is 80, so you will have 180, is equal to 105 plus 102 plus 125 is equal, minus 72 minus 63 minus 77 plus this one here we do not know, so that is represented by x. And then we do our arithmetic, so you have 180 is equal to 105 plus 102 plus 125, and that gives you 332 minus 72 plus 63 plus 77, and that gives you 212 plus x, which is equal to 180 is equal to 120 plus x, thus your x is equal to 60, and this is your x here is equal to 60. Then we can say that, okay, this part here is 72 minus 60, that is 12. This one, jazz and rock, is 12. Rock and pop, that is 63, so this is 3. And then jazz and pop is 77, so this is 17. Now the question asked is how many listeners who like only pop. So this one here is 125 minus 60 plus 3 plus 17, and that is equal to 45. So in other words, 45 listeners who like only pop music. Let's have another example. In a survey of 100 people, it was found out that 28 read magazine X, 30 read magazine Y, 42 read magazine Z, 8 read magazine X and Y, 10 read magazine X and Z, 5 read magazine Y and Z, and 3 read all 3 magazines. So how many read none of the 3 magazines? And how many read magazine Z only? So I have here the problem, and let's do some representations. So you have there 28 read X. So we will have, let X, so magazines X is 28, and then you have Y is equal to 30, and Z is equal to 42. Then you have for XY, so that is N of X intersection Y, that gives you 8, and X intersection Z, that gives you 10, and then N Y intersection Z gives you 5. And then your N of X intersection Y intersection Z is 3. So if you are going to have that in our Venn diagram, this is your X, Y, and Z. This is 3. And so XY is, let's have another color here. So you have, this is 5. And then you have XZ is 10. So this is 7. And then you have YZ is 5. So this is 2. And the question is, how many read none of the 3 magazines? Now, since this is 28 and this is 30 and this is 42, so how much is this part here? This one is 20. This part here is 42 minus this is minus 12, so this is 30, and then 28 minus 13 gives you, or 15 gives you 13. So if you total that, the outside, your U, this is your universe, U, those that did not read any of the 3 magazines, so you will just be 13 plus 5 plus 20 plus 3 plus 7 plus 2 plus 30. That gives you 80. So that the answer here that is outside your universe is, let's have it, this is 20. So the answer, how many read none of the 3 magazines? The answer is 20. How many read magazine Z only? And this is 30. So that is how to answer some problems involving sets, word problems involving sets. Now let's have some exercises here, and I want you to practice understanding and answering some of these questions. So you have here, in a group of 70 people, 37 like coffee, 52 people like tea, and each person likes at least one of the 2 drinks. So how many people like both coffee and tea? And then another question here. So you have to be very careful with each given information and the question asked. So that's all for today. Please answer these 2 problems here because this serves as your homework. Thank you for listening. This is your teacher Christina. See you next